Hi guys, it's Karen, also known as Not Fancy Knitter. I'm coming to you from Chicago, where I live with my husband, our 3 kids, and our 2 dogs, Max and Alonzo. Today is a little bit different than a normal podcast episode. It's kind of a mishmash, but there's 3 things we're gonna do in this video. The first being, I wanna go over the details for the knit-along that's gonna start on April 1st. So I'll give you all the details for those. I haven't picked prizes yet, but I can give you a good idea of what I have in mind. And secondly, I went down a pretty deep and wide rabbit hole after I watched the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, because there was a cardigan in there that I was completely obsessed with, and it led me to try to start an intarsia project, not a cardigan, because I've never done intarsia before ever. I'm gonna try to do a hat based off of this cardigan, so I'll sort of explain that project that I'm trying to get going, and then in order to get that to happen, we need to go to the yarn store. So I'm gonna take you with me as I go to Nina Chicago, my most favorite local yarn store, to see if I can get some yarn that will work for this project. If I can't find what I need, then we'll have to go to a different store, and that'll probably be a different video. But I'm gonna give it a good go, and I'm gonna take you with me. So let's get into it. Like I said, I haven't found prizes yet. I haven't even looked, but I know for sure that I'll be giving away yarn because that is my most favorite prize. So it'll probably be a skein of yarn and whatever else I can locate. If you are a maker or a yarn dyer or anyone with connections to the fiber arts community and you have something that you'd like to donate for a prize, I would love, love, love to give it away and show it to our viewers. So just reach out to me either on Instagram or email or TikTok or wherever in the comments, wherever you can find me. I would love to hear from you. Okay, first up, knit-along details. There is going to be a knit-along happening on this channel starting April 1st and running through June 1st. And the idea of this knit-along is to give everybody that little bit of encouragement and motivation and cheering section to try a project or a skill that you haven't tried before. So if you've always wanted to give brioche a go, or if you've heard about intarsia but you're really freaked out and you don't know if it's something you could do, now is your chance. If you don't want to, you don't have to go crazy and try the world's most difficult project. If you always knit garter scarves, like maybe knit a tea towel, or maybe cast on a hat. If you've never done 2 colors of yarn in the same project, that would work too. It does not have to be bonkers, although I encourage any and all sorts of ridiculous bravery. But anything will work as long as it's something that you've been wanting to try. I would love to see what you're working on. So if you'd like to participate in the knit-along, like I said, it starts on April 1st. Works in progress are allowed. So if there is a work in progress that you have that you just sort of have set aside or you haven't gotten through yet, go ahead and lump it into this knit-along. We're here to encourage anyone and everyone to work on whatever it is they've got going on. If you'd like to participate, it's going to be running on Instagram and Ravelry. There's a hashtag called, hang on, I wrote it down so I don't get it wrong. It's called You Can Do It, Cal. Not to be confused with You Can Do It, Kale, which has a single post on Instagram. So hopefully they won't mind if we get close. So feel free to post work in progress pictures. Really anything having to do with the knit-along can be under that hashtag. You will be eligible for prizes even if you do not finish your project. Because, how many knit-alongs have I been a part of that I'm like so close to finishing and I just don't get there, and then it's like really sad. I'd like to reward participation of any kind. So if you're part of the knit-along in spirit and you just don't finish your project, that's fine too. Just if you post and include the hashtag You Can Do It, Cal, we will be there to support you in whatever you're working on. If you don't use Instagram or you'd rather be involved in Ravelry, I have opened a sub-thread under the group for this podcast on Ravelry. I'm going to be the first to say that I have really not at all participated in groups on Ravelry, but I'm going to. So I opened a thread on Ravelry. If you just want to chat, if you want to share things that you're working on, things you're considering, works in progress pictures, finished object pictures, that would be great. We are here to do this together. So I would love to see what you've got going on. If you don't do Ravelry and you don't do Instagram, but you still want to be a part of the knit-along, don't worry. There's an email for this podcast, which is ayarntale@gmail.com. If you just email me with your work in progress picture or anything you want to include in the knit along, and I will put your name in for prizes. I was going to pull one from Ravelry and one from Instagram, or depending on how many prizes I find, there may be multiples for those as well. So feel free to post on Instagram and on Ravelry. You can double dip and have more chances to win. Because, you know, like, who doesn't like a good chance to win? And we'll just see how we go. This is hopefully intended to give people the opportunity or the excuse to try something that they wouldn't normally try, or, you know, branch out a little bit. Because a lot of times I have found that things that I've sort of built up in my mind to be really difficult, once you sit down and actually do them, like, they're not that bad. And if they are, you know, we'll be there to support you. And the people who watch this channel are so knowledgeable and helpful. It's really like a very kind place of the internet. So if you need help on your project, I'm sure people would love to hop in and give their advice. Okay, this leads me right into the project that I am trying to get started. Recently, I watched the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. And there's a scene in the movie where the main character, Evelyn, wears this red cardigan that is amazing. I'll put a picture of it here so you can get a good look, but it is a red kind of grandma vibe cardigan with a collar at the top and buttons, and there's this really incredible patch, or, you know, color work on the back and then on the two pockets, and it even goes all the way down the sleeve. But I mean, that's like super complicated. I wasn't too stressed out about the sleeves, but I love the color work on the back and the pockets. So I was like, what is this cardigan? Where did it come from? Can I get one? How does that happen? So I looked on the internet, and of course, everyone is obsessed with this cardigan. And the costume designer said that they found it at a thrift store in LA. So, I mean, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help anyone. So I kind of became obsessed with recreating something like this. Now, I have only ever made one cardigan, and it was not complicated. And looking at something like this, that looks like it has some kind of set-in sleeve with pockets, and there's buttons, but there's no button band, and it looks like it might even be boiled wool. I don't know what's going on with that sweater. It's weird. I'm not at all confident that I'd be able to recreate that type of thing myself. And if I did, it would be like a Herculean effort to do so. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what I really like is the color work. And I was like, you know what? I kind of just want that. So I thought, what if I could make a hat that had that on it, like a red hat that had that punk color work on it? That would be super cool. So yesterday, you know when you can just feel yourself falling down the rabbit hole? Well, I just like dove right in and decided to try to recreate that color work chart for myself. So going off of screenshotted pictures and whatever I could find on the internet, I printed out, I don't know if you've ever done this, I printed out knitting graph paper, because when you do knitting charts, the horizontal space is wider than the vertical space. So the way the knitting actually looks when you're done with it is closer to this than it is to traditional graph paper. So I printed this out for free from a website called Trixie Knitter. I'll put the information down below. So if you are ever looking for knitting graph paper, this is super easy, letter-sized graph paper. And I just used it to try to recreate the color work. So I did it with colored pencils first. I know there are computer programs where you can upload photographs and it will make a knitting chart for you. And I tried doing that, but my photo was too high res. So all of the little color variations that were within the solid color blocks came up as a new color. And it was like the world's most giant and detailed color work chart. And I'm sure there's a way to fix that technologically, but it was like too much for me. So I just was like, you know what? I'm doing this the old school way. And I took a screenshot of the color work portion of the sweater that was just on the pocket, and I recreated it on graph paper with colored pencils. Super low tech, but very effective. Okay, so once I had that going on, oh, one more thing. So the original photograph has punk, right? But then in the bottom left corner, there's that blue thing, and I wasn't sure, like, I'm not sure what it is. Is it lipstick? Is it weirdly phallic? I don't know. I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know if I should be wearing that on my head if I don't know what it is. I don't get it. I like the blue though, so in mine, I changed it to a star. So after I had it charted out, it was really hard to read because my color pencils are really light. So I went to the computer program and transferred it manually by hand, because once I had it worked out, it only took like 5 minutes to pop in the chart. This program is from a website called Stitch Fiddle, which is free if you sign up for an account. So you put in like your name and email, and then it's free. So if you ever need a chart, this is what it gives you. There is a paid for version with a bunch of other bells and whistles, but just for my purposes, this was pretty good. Now it looks better from far away. But I swear, I literally counted stitches from the screenshot, and like, this is it. This is what happened. I think it looks pretty good. My star is a little wonky because I can't do diagonals. I'm sort of toying around with doing parts of the star or the whole star in duplicate stitch, because then I can do half stitches, which I think would make it look more accurate. Some other intrepid viewers have also suggested that I do intarsia just for the red and the tan color, and then I do the black, these little single sections in duplicate stitch, because I guess it's hard to do intarsia with just single stitch sections. Like I said, I've never done intarsia, so I may profoundly regret this project, but we're gonna try it. So this is my plan. Well, here's the plan. So that's the color work chart. I printed it out. That's what we're working off of. It is currently like 40 stitches across and 35 stitches high. So my plan is to knit a hat and then just on the front do an intarsia section with that color work chart. So it's gonna be a red hat, and then there'll be that color work pattern on the front. Since I am currently in the middle of knitting a Musselburgh in fingering weight yarn, I have a pretty good indication of how wide my fingering weight, how many stitches it takes. Like, I'm not gonna swatch, because I mean, how long can I spend on this? But this is a fingering weight hat that's just stocking it all the way around. And I measured it and of course didn't write it down, but it's a pretty good size for 40 stitches across, makes like a good width in fingering weight yarn. So I'm gonna knit this in basically a modified Musselburgh type hat, although I'm gonna have to knit it flat because I think intarsia has to be done flat. I don't think I can, I mean, it's my first intarsia project, so we're gonna do it flat because that's what the internet says you should do. And then I'll seam it up afterwards. I'm also toying around, we'll see how I feel after I get through the intarsia part, but I'm toying around with knitting a lining as well, because fingering weight hats are super thin. I mean, this is it now. Like, to me, living in Chicago, a fingering weight hat is like, well, that's just for looks. I mean, that's not gonna help anybody. It's cold here. So if I were being really ambitious, I mean, even like I'm not, this is already ambitious, but I think the real answer is I should cast on provisionally, do a provisional cast on, and then knit the intarsia portion of the hat flat, basically knit a whole hat flat and seam it up. And then I was toying around with picking up my provisional stitches and then knitting a lining in the round. And then it could be basically like a Musselburgh where you could stuff the lining in, and then you wouldn't even have to weave in your ends from the intarsia because it would be hidden in the lining. I mean, part of me thinks that's genius, and part of me thinks there's gonna be unintended consequences for that I don't know about yet. But I'm thinking of it. Maybe. Can you knit part of the hat flat and then seam it and then still use your provisional stitches? Or would that be too bunched up and hard to get? I don't know. These are the things I think about in the shower. So the point is, This is the weird rabbit hole that I'm going down. I may regret it. We may, in 2 weeks' time, be sitting around laughing about how ridiculous I was to even attempt this. But I really feel like I have to give it a go. And I do feel like since the knit along is coming up and it's all about trying new skills, I mean, this is like a mashup of 1,000 new skills that I've never tried before. And, you know, it's a hat, so how bad could it be, right? I mean, even if it's the worst project ever, it's not gonna take that long. I mean, so I tell myself. So what we need to do to get this started is we need to go to the yarn store. And I'm just taking my yarn requirements from my Musselburgh because I'm basically trying to recreate a hat like this, modified extensively for what's going on in my mind. So I need 1 full 100-gram skein of red yarn. Ideally, like, this is the screenshot I was working off of. Okay, it's backwards and upside down, but it's like a really deep, saturated red. So I'm looking for, I'd like it just to be full solid, but I guess I could do some sort of tonal variation if there's the right, like really deep, rich red. And then I need a beige-ish color, and probably a mini skein of black and that blue color, which I don't know, I guess I'll just use for duplicate stitch, or I don't know. So we'll just see what we can find. The most important part is the red color, but I also do need some sort of contrast color for my color work. And you guys, what do you think that is? Is it inappropriate? Am I gonna get dinged on YouTube? I think it might be lipstick, but maybe not. I don't know. Is it a bottle? It kind of looks like a bottle, but then it also kind of looks phallic. So you tell me, I don't know. Anyway, I took it out because I don't like to wear things I don't know what they are. So mine is a star. I mean, stars are punk too, right? I mean, let's be honest, I'm not very punk. I'm about as far from that as you can get, but I do like punk hats. So let's see what we find at the yarn store. I realize I haven't done a yarn store visit for this channel in over a year now. I went for my Stephen West mystery knit along, not for this past year, but for the year before. So let's go back. Lena Chicago is awesome. It is in my neighborhood. I mean, I do have to drive there, but it's very close. The ladies who work there are super nice, and they're not at all weird or cliquey or uncomfortable. I think some yarn stores I go into and I get like serious imposter syndrome. And I just like don't even know what I'm looking for, and I end up just like panic buying sort of the closest and first thing that I touch. And then I get home and I'm like, oh, this isn't even what I wanted. But the people at Nina's are super chill. They're very relaxed. It's really beautiful and sunny and bright in there, and it's just a great place to be. So come on along. I'll show you what it looks like, and you can help me pick out some yarn. Full disclosure, I am not going to do a lot of video in there because I always feel like a doofus trying to video in a store. Not that they care, they're super nice. But like, what if there's other customers and then I'm basically talking to myself or talking to my phone? The whole thing feels weird. So I will get some footage, but I'm probably not gonna be talking because I just get too weirded out. But yeah, let's see what we find. They had 4 different reds that you saw in the video clip before. There was one from Ritual Dyes that was beautiful. There was one from Creo, and then there was both the ritual dyes and the Crayo one were a little bit variegated or tonal, and I was kind of worried that although the colors were beautiful and I would love to use them in a different project, I was worried that I really needed like a straight solid for this type of intarsia project. So I ended up going with the Movers and Makers, let's see what it's actually called, right? It's called Paper Doll in their Wicker Park fingering. It's 75% superwash merino and 15% nylon. It's 433 yards for 100 grams, so should be plenty, more than enough for what I'm trying to do. And it's this beautiful, just straight Christmas red. It's not quite as bright as it's showing up on camera, but you get the idea. I think that's about as close as I was gonna get. Hello, Alonzo. Okay, and then I also got this kind of off-white color, whoops, flying tag, from Northern Bee Studio, which is a wonderful yarn studio in Wisconsin. This is their sturdy sock. It's also 75-25 superwash merino nylon, 460 yards for 100 grams, and this is the colorway Nutshell. So it's a little bit, it's not quite as beigey as the cardigan, but for hat purposes, I think that's gonna look great together. And then I got a tiny mini, which is also Movers and Makers, in the colorway Blue Line Division, which is actually an L-stop in town. So got like the local connection. This is just a mini, 75% superwash merino, 15% nylon, 10% tencel. Wait, is that the other one too? Yeah, totally just stop reading the fiber content. 75, 15, 10, superwash merino, nylon, tencel. So this I'm gonna use for the star, if I get to that point. I haven't decided yet if I'm doing the star in intarsia or duplicate stitch. I don't know. I don't know how to do either of those things. So I don't know which one I'm gonna feel like learning first. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So that's it. That's all I've got going on right now. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for checking in. I will have another regular podcast video next week, hopefully Friday, although next Friday I'm going to be at YarnCon, so we'll see how filming fits into that. If you're going to YarnCon, let me know where you're going to be. I'd love to hear about it. If you'd like to get in touch otherwise, I am knotfancyknitter on Instagram, TikTok, and Ravelry, so I would love to hear from you. If you're planning on participating in the knit along, if you want to learn intarsia with me, please, I would love to have some company. And as always, I appreciate anyone who took the time out of their day to spend some time with me. I hope your knitting treats you well, and I will see you soon. Bye. Happy knitting. So really, we reward